Stella battles against Momotani and, before Momotani could even land a single strike against Stella, he gave up due to the fear of being covered in Stella's flames. Shizuku and Nagi, while in the locker room, talk about how easy Stella's match was, as Stella was showering as well as revealing that both her and Nagi had won their respective first matches as well. Kagami then barges in wanting to interview the 3 first years and Nagi and her quickly become close as both enjoy gossip. Ikki watches one of Kirihara's matches, and had accidentally imagined himself in the position of the helpless girl who was going against him, as she was about to be struck down with one of Kirihara's arrows. Stella then comes in and they talk about Kirihara's ability, area invisibility, allowing him to shoot arrows at blazers from a safe place. Ikki notices Stella's worry, and Ikki assures her that he will win. Ikki then goes on a run, where he runs into Nagi, who wanted to know the story between Kirihara and him, knowing that Ikki and Kirihara had some sort of bloodshed. Ikki recollected his first year at Hagun Academy, as he told Nagi the story. Ikki then remembers his first year in the academy where he met a fellow first-year Kirihara, who approached Ikki with the idea of fighting him in order for Ikki to have fighting abilities recognized by the staff. Ikki, back in present now, tells Nagi that he was not able to fight back in any way as he thought he would be expelled for giving in to provocation. Nagi then asks Ikki what he would do if things hadn't changed like they did, and Ikki stated that he would keep going to prove his strength no matter what, which prompts Nagi to tell Ikki that he is used to being hurt and that he hopes Ikki will meet someone who hears the screams in his heart. The next day, while Ikki registered for participation in the selection battle, he is approached by Nene Saikyo, who was impressed by his no hesitation in agreeing to the registration form, as so many others do. Ikki then recognizes Nene as a strong fighter as Nene closes the space between her and Ikki, in an instant, and offers private lessons for Ikki. Kurano, however, interrupts and drags Nene away from Ikki so she can return to her duties as the commentator of the matches. Ikki then goes to the waiting room, where he tries to focus. He closes his eyes and thinks about all the events leading up to this point, becoming more agitated as he thought on, and in an instant it was already time for his match. Ikki and Kirihara are introduced by the announcer, and Kirihara and Ikki both draw out their weapons as the buzzer begins the match. Kirihara summons a forest and uses his area of invisibility, beginning to fire his arrows at Ikki. Ikki is able to figure out the trajectory of the arrows and is able to figure out where Kirihara is the moment he fires an arrow. Kirihara then decides to play a game with Ikki and calls out where he is going to shoot Ikki. As his game begins, he unveils that he can hide his arrows in his area of invisibility, and is able to shoot Ikki down without much effort. Stella, Shizuku and Nagi are then seen in the stands watching on. Stella wonders why Ikki didn't use his technique the moment the match started, and Nagi explains that he couldn't as Ikki lost his usual state of mind due to his nerves getting to him. Kirihara then begins to mock Ikki, as he continues to shoot arrows from various angles towards Ikki, mocking his very need to win the Sword Art Festival just to graduate. The crowd joins in Kirihara's mockery of Ikki, and begin to chant, with Kirihara leading them, "Worst one," discouraging Ikki even further. Stella, listening to all of the insults and being frustrated more and more by the chanting of the crowd, finally stops the chanting and tells Ikki to get up, encouraging Ikki to fight back against Kirihara. Kirihara then decides to aim at Ikki's brain as Ikki activates his noble art, Itashura. Kirihara fires his arrow. However, it was caught by Ikki, who knew he would aim at his chest instead of his brain, terrifying Kirihara. Nene explains that Ikki was able to take in all the logic of his opponent's technique and use it against them, naming it Perfect Vision. Kirihara, terrified, fires everything at Ikki, even using his technique Million Rain, but was unsuccessful as Ikki already knew where his arrow was coming as well as him. Ikki then charges at Kirihara, but before he cuts him, Kirihara admits defeat, terrified of being cut. Ikki stops his attack before cutting Kirihara, commenting that he missed his aim by millimeters and in need of training. The commentator announces Ikki's win. Ikki then collapses and is taken to the infirmary room for treatment. Ikki, at the infirmary, wakes up to find Stella sleeping at his bedside. As Stella, she is flustered by Ikki seeing her drool. Ikki, after Stella had calmed down, had wanted to tell her that he liked her too. Stella, however, stops him and instead tells him to close his eyes. After he did so, she kissed him on the cheek. Ikki responds by hugging her, and they each promise each other to fight in the finals of the Sword Art Festival. 2 weeks have passed since Ikki's battle with Kirihara. Ikki has progressed through the following matches with ease, quickly losing his school nickname of the worst one and gaining the new nickname of another one, and becoming popular with the other students, volunteering to mentor them and perfecting their strength using what he learned about swordsmanship. However, Stella becomes frustrated when Ikki isn't paying enough attention to her during the time since they became a couple. Ikki later takes her, Shizuku, Alice and his followers to the local swimming pool for more training. There, Shizuku and Alice discuss the former's affections towards Ikki despite their biological relation. Meanwhile, after talking about her and Ikki's relationship to classmate Kagami Kusakabe, Stella and Ikki get into a fight after she reveals her misinterpretation that Ikki no longer likes her, which he quickly denies. After the two cool down and settle out their problem, Ikki suggests they both blurt out what they want to do right now with each other. When the two both want to kiss, they happily do so. On the way back, Ikki and Stella are informed that their next opponents are members from the student council. As Ikki and Stella continue to make progress in the selection matches, Ikki notices he is being stalked by a female student, who eventually identifies herself as Ayase Ayatsuji, the daughter of Kaito Ayatsuji, a famous swordsman. She had been hoping to ask Ikki to help her improve her swordsmanship, but was unable to approach him directly because of her fear of men, androphobia. He agrees to help her, to the surprise of both Stella and Shizuku. During training, he deduces that Ayase's problem lies in her imitation of her father's style, which is impossible to accomplish. He then proposes that since she is now fully dedicated to imitating her father's style and cannot utilize any other technique, she must adjust her position by understanding her anatomy. With this advice in mind, Ayase is able to land a hit on Ikki with ease. While accompanying Ikki and Ayase home, Stella asks Shizuku if she is jealous of Ayase, and she replies that she isn't, then hopes that Stella will always take care of Ikki and never betray him. One night, while having dinner with Ayase, Ikki and Stella meet Kurado Kurashiki, a blazer who knows Ayase and despises swordsmen. He begins harassing Ayase and then injures an unresisting Ikki when he stands up for her. Afterwards, the trio is approached by Utakata Misogi and Kanata Tokobura, members of the Hagun Academy Student Council, who commend Ikki for not retaliating against Kurado. As they walk back home, Ikki and Ayase are informed that their next festival opponents will be each other. The following night, Ikki meets up with Ayase on the school rooftop at her request. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe.